Just do it again and again until, people come to their senses and realize how, don't mess with the Muslims.
Also on Monday, a surveillance team was watching his apartment and monitoring his emails and phone calls. They could have arrested him.
Intelligence officials were concerned about a small group of Queens residents who had espoused militant ideas and sympathized with al-Qaeda.
If they had apprehended him at the airport and he pulled the gun in the parking lot, we could have had FBI agents losing their lives.
Residents of the United Kingdom with UK passports mounting attacks on the streets of London.
Number 5, 2017 Sydney plane plot. On July 29, 2017, an Australian counter-terrorism operation foiled the most serious Islamic State plot the country has ever faced. Two brothers in Sydney, guided by Islamic State operatives in Syria, had tried to cause an explosion on an Etihad plane flying from Sydney to Abu Dhabi, carrying 400 passengers. They also tried to build a chemical weapon to disperse lethal gas against members of the public.
I can report last night that there has been a major joint counter-terrorism operation.
Khalid and Mahmoud Kayat were both found guilty earlier this year of planning to blow up the aircraft using a bomb.
It was not only the ambitions to slay hundreds of people that made the plot so serious, but how close it came to completion. The plot had begun in January 2017 and progressed undetected for over 6 months before Australian authorities were alerted to it by an international intelligence partner on July 26, 2017. In response, the New South Wales Joint Counter-Terrorism Team began an investigation named Operation Silves, leading to the arrests of 4 suspects 3 days later. 2 of the suspects, Khaled Kayat and Mahmoud Kayat, were charged with conspiracy to do acts in preparation for a terrorist act. They were charged with 40 and 36 years in jail, respectively.
Been sentenced to 40 and 36 years in jail. The pair was also planning a lethal poisonous gas attack. A hidden bomb was found in the luggage of the terrorist's brother.
The operation is continuing. We face a range of terrorist threats.
Number 4, 2009 New York subway attack. The 2009 New York subway plot was a planned act of terrorism targeting the New York City subway system and would have had devastating consequences if not foiled. The plot was spearheaded by Najibullah Zazi, an Afghan-born American living in Colorado. Zazi and his co-conspirators planned to conduct explosions on the New York City subway system during rush hour. Their intent was to cause mass casualties and instill fear in the population. The initial breakthrough in uncovering the plot occurred when intelligence agencies intercepted email communications between Zazi and an unknown individual in Pakistan, discussing plans for an attack. These intercepted communications raised suspicions and triggered an extensive investigation by federal authorities. The investigation quickly escalated as law enforcement agencies collaborated to gather further evidence and track Zazi's activities. Surveillance teams closely monitored his movements, including his travel to New York City. The FBI, NYPD, and other agencies coordinated efforts to ensure public safety and gather crucial intelligence.
Here in New York City, police and federal agents raided 4 homes early today as part of a terrorism investigation.
Mr. Zazi stayed at the house of one of his friends that was somebody that apparently was being under investigation in New York.
Intelligence officials were concerned about a small group of Queens residents who had espoused militant ideas and sympathized with al-Qaeda.
As the investigation unfolded, authorities discovered that Zazi had acquired materials and components necessary to construct explosive devices. It became evident that the plot was in an advanced stage, with Zazi and his associates making final preparations for the attack. On September 19, 2009, with the threat level deemed imminent, law enforcement officers arrested Zazi as he traveled by car from Colorado to New York City. The arrest disrupted the plot and prevented the planned explosions from taking place. Subsequent searches of Zazi's residence and vehicles yielded evidence that corroborated his intent to carry out the attacks. Authorities found explosive making manuals, explosive precursor chemicals, and other materials indicative of his involvement in the plot.
I know you're from Afghanistan?
Yes, I'm from Afghanistan.
Okay, all right.
A number of high-profile events, the 9/11 anniversary, the president's visit to New York, and the U.S. Open were all reason for some concern.
Number 3, 2010 Copenhagen plot. The 2010 Copenhagen terror plot was a planned act of terrorism that targeted the city of Copenhagen, Denmark. The plot unfolded in December 2010 when the Danish Security and Intelligence Service received credible intelligence regarding an imminent terrorist attack. The information indicated that a group of individuals planned to carry out a shooting spree at the Jyllands-Posten newspaper headquarters in Copenhagen. Jillian Poston had previously published cartoons depicting the Prophet Muhammad, which had sparked controversy and drawn the attention of extremists. The plotters aimed to avenge what they perceived as blasphemy against Islam through a violent attack on the newspaper. The Danish authorities, along with international partners, launched a large-scale operation to disrupt the plot and ensure public safety. The operation involved surveillance, monitoring of communications, and intelligence sharing between Danish, Swedish, and Norwegian security agencies. On December 29, 2010, just hours before the planned attack, Danish police arrested 4 individuals in Copenhagen and 1 in Stockholm, Sweden, effectively thwarting the plot. The individuals were charged with terrorism-related offenses and later convicted. Among the 4 was Munir Awad, a Swedish national of Lebanese origin. He was one of the key individuals arrested in Copenhagen.
In Copenhagen, this office block was the target for an alleged New Year attack.
Incident which happened earlier this evening in the Danish capital, Copenhagen.
Danish daily newspaper Jyllands-Posten that outraged Muslims in 2005 when it published cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad.
Several people are thought to have died. The mayor of the city says it is a very serious situation.
Thoughts of sympathy over the situation in which they now find themselves.
Police have confirmed some deaths. 1 person has been arrested, but they've given few other details.
He was detained on December 29, 2010, just hours before the planned attack. Awad was charged with terrorism-related offenses, including planning to commit a terrorist act and possession of illegal weapons. In 2012, he was convicted and sentenced to 12 years in prison. Another important arrest was that of Omar Abdulaziz Hussein, also known as Abu Qasem. He was an Iraqi-born Swedish national and was arrested in Copenhagen alongside Munir Awad. Hussein faced similar charges related to the plot, including planning a terrorist act. In 2012, he was convicted and received a sentence of 12 years in prison.
Vestergaard, whose drawings were published in the paper, now lives under police guard amid death threats.
Some shoppers fled the complex. Others tried to find cover, desperately seeking hiding places.
My first thoughts went out to my former colleagues.
Number 2, 2010 Times Square attack. The 2010 Times Square car attack attempt was a significant terrorist plot aimed at causing mass casualties in one of New York City's busiest areas. On the evening of May 1, 2010, a car parked in Times Square was discovered with smoke emanating from it. Inside the vehicle, law enforcement officers found a homemade explosive consisting of propane tanks, fireworks, and gasoline. The intent was to detonate the explosive and cause widespread destruction and loss of life. The perpetrator behind the plot was Faisal Shahzad, a Pakistani-American residing in Connecticut. Shahzad had received training in explosive making during a trip to Pakistan and had been influenced by extremist ideologies. He was motivated by a desire to avenge perceived injustices against Muslims and carried out the attempted attack as an act of terrorism.
If they had apprehended him at the airport and he pulled a gun in the parking lot, we could have had FBI agents losing their lives.
Also on Monday, a surveillance team was watching his apartment and monitoring his emails and phone calls. They could have arrested him.
And obviously, he came very close to getting out of the country.
Not only had Faisal Shahzad eluded a surveillance team, he was carrying a 9mm handgun.
However, due to a combination of fortunate circumstances and the swift response of law enforcement, the plot was foiled. Alert street vendors noticed smoke coming from the vehicle and alerted a mounted police officer who was nearby. The area was quickly evacuated, and the explosive was successfully defused by the NYPD. Following the discovery of the failed explosive, an intensive investigation was launched to identify and apprehend the perpetrator. Investigators quickly traced the vehicle's identification number to Shahzad, leading to his arrest just 2 days after the attempted attack as he attempted to board an international flight at JFK International Airport. Shahzad's arrest led to a thorough interrogation, during which he confessed to his involvement in the plot. He provided valuable intelligence about his training, contacts, and motivations, enabling law enforcement to dismantle the network and track down other individuals involved in supporting the attack. In June 2010, Shahzad pleaded guilty to multiple terrorism-related charges, including the attempted use of a weapon of mass destruction and attempted acts of terrorism transcending national boundaries. He was subsequently sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Number 1. 2006 Transatlantic Aircraft Plot. The 2006 transatlantic aircraft plot was a major terrorist conspiracy that aimed to detonate liquid explosives on multiple transatlantic flights departing from the UK to North America. The scheme was successfully thwarted due to diligent intelligence work and coordinated efforts by British and international security agencies. The investigation began in early 2006, when British intelligence agencies received intelligence indicating a potential large-scale terrorist attack involving liquid explosives on airplanes. This intelligence triggered an extensive and urgent operation to disrupt the planned attacks and apprehend those involved. Working under the codename Operation Overt,
just do it again and again until, people come to their senses and realize how, don't mess with the Muslims.
Residents of the United Kingdom with UK passports mounting attacks on the streets of London.
Some of the plotters had even recorded Al-Qaeda-style martyrdom videos to be released to the world after the attacks.
British authorities, including MI6, MI5, and the Metropolitan Police, collaborated with partners from the US, Canada, and Pakistan to gather intelligence and track the activities of the suspects. The operation involved surveillance, monitoring of communications, and the infiltration of the terrorist cell. As the investigation progressed, law enforcement and intelligence agencies were able to identify key individuals involved in the plot. In August 2006, the British authorities executed a series of synchronized raids across the U.S., apprehending multiple suspects who were allegedly in the final stages of preparing for the attacks. The arrests were made in London, Birmingham, and High Wycombe. The raids resulted in the arrest of 24 individuals linked to the plot. Subsequent searches of the suspects' residences and other locations uncovered explosive-making materials, including hydrogen peroxide-based liquid explosives disguised as beverages, as well as other components and equipment for constructing the explosive devices. The disruption of the plot led to a significant increase in airport security measures worldwide, with restrictions on carrying liquids and hand luggage being implemented as a direct response to the threat posed by the liquid explosives. Most people remember the transatlantic terror plot, if they do at all, as the reason they cannot bring more than 3 ounces of liquid on a flight. But the thwarted scheme has a bigger legacy, as an abject lesson in how to successfully fight transnational terror alongside allies and without resorting to illegal or legally dubious tactics. The U.S. war against terrorist groups over the last 2 decades has had a mixed track record at best, but the 2006 disruption of the liquid explosion stands out as a highlight in a long and still ongoing struggle to keep citizens of democracies safe while respecting civil liberties, human rights, and the rule of law. That's all for today, folks. See you next time.